Good morning, guys. Welcome to Dark Tales of the Mind. I'm your host, Lucian Graves, and today's video will be about a dark psychological thriller based and inspired by 50 Cent's Many Men. And without further ado, we'll get on with the story. The rain started just before dawn. Not a storm, just a soft, persistent drizzle that soaked cracked asphalt and seeped into the bones. The city smelled like wet concrete, oil, and rusted metal. Streetlights hummed, flickering like dying eyes illuminating puddles that mirrored the crooked skyline. Somewhere a siren wailed in the distance, and Marcus Hale wondered, not for the first time, if the world had stopped listening. He sat in the back of a black Crown Victoria on the corner of 8th and Bramble, hands wrapped around a styrofoam cup of coffee long gone cold. The steam rose in ghostly wisps, curling like smoke from a gun, and Marcus watched the reflection of his own bloodshot eyes stare back at him from the windshield. Scarred cheek, hollow jaw, and a chin shaking with just enough to betray the tensions coiled like steel inside of him. He didn't need to check his phone to know the message was coming. They put money on your head again. It had been a week since the last whisper, the last shadow sliding past his peripheral vision, the last friend who wasn't really a friend. Marcus read the text twice, deleted it, and stared through the windshield as if that act alone might erase the threat. The world didn't give a damn. It hadn't for a long time. A car passed, tires hissing through the wet streets. The driver's side window caught his reflection for a fleeting second. A ghostly twin staring back at him, pale, hollow-eyed, and patient. Marcus lowered his gaze. The city had teeth. They were about to sharpen them for him. He hadn't slept, not really, not in weeks. The nightmares came at first, clawing through the edges of his conscience. Dark streets, faces blurred, hands wrapped around triggers that fired themselves. And then the whispers. Sometimes a name, sometimes a warning. Always certainly that someone was watching. Always the echo of betrayal. Many men, he muttered to himself, voice low, rough, wish death upon me. He had memorized those words years ago, a mantra of survival that carried the rhythm of inevitability. He had lived by them, he would die by them. Marcus knew the rules. The streets did not forgive weakness. The city had no patience for hesitation, and every morning he reminded himself that he could survive anything, because he already had. The first betrayal came from Slim who knew the game, who had been Marcus's closest thing to family in the world that demanded only rivals. He whispered through clenched teeth on a phone call Marcus would never forget. Yo, they're coming for you, Mark. Real this time. Money on your head, don't blink. Marcus had laughed, a dry, humorless sound that echoed off the cracked walls of his apartment. Next, he said, I already died 3 times, bro. Then the line went dead. By dusk, Marcus was moving again. New apartment, new sim, same blood in his veins. His back pressed against the cold brick walls, gun tucked in his waist, eyes scanning for anything out of place. Every shadow flickered with potential death. Every passerby could be a messenger of doom. Every whispered every whispered word was a promise of violence. The city was quiet tonight, too quiet. He found himself on Bramble Avenue, walking under the flickering haze of a streetlight that buzzed like an old speaker. Rain dripped off the brim of his hood, soaking the leather of his jacket. His hands were shoved deep into his pockets, fingertips brushing the metal cold of his Glock. He didn't want to use it, not yet, but the knowledge that it was there, ready, comforted him. Marcus had long stopped asking for protection from God. Their prayers were empty now, words swallowed by silence, nights spent staring at ceilings, listening to the rain, wishing someone, anyone, would answer. But God didn't. The city did. The asphalt did. The guns did. He turned the corner and froze. Shadows, three of them, sliding through the haze, motionless but deliberate. His pulse ticked up, slow and deliberate, matching the rhythm of the rain. The world slowed around him, every drop, every flicker of light, every heartbeat became a drum signaling inevitability. Pull up, pull up, a voice hissed through the static of memory. A warning, a prelude, an echo from somewhere else. Some other time Marcus didn't move. The shadows did. He thought of every time he had cheated death, every close call, every betrayal, every friend who had turned into a ghost. He thought of Slim, he thought of Tuck, he thought of the money, the bounty that marked him like a target painted in blood. Then he whispered to himself, low and bitter, I'm the diamond in the dirt. They haven't found me yet. The first steps the first step he took was quiet, too quiet. The second one heavier. The third deliberate. The rain hissed as it met the soles of his boots. The shadows watched, patient, waiting, hungry. And Marcus Hale, survivor, betrayed, hunted, pressed forward into the darkness he had always known would find him. The night was heavier than usual, pressing down through the rain, soaked streets like it was alive. Waiting for him to slip, Marcus moved with measured steps, leather boots tapping against the puddles reflected fractured light. Every echo was water amplified, bouncing off the narrow alleyways, filling his ears with symphony and imminent danger. He passed the corner store where the neon sign buzzed half dead open hours. Inside, a cashier flicked a cigarette into an ashtray and stared at him for longer than comfort would allow. Marcus didn't acknowledge him, he never did. Eye contact was a liability, and in these streets, even the smallest glance could become a threat. Then he heard it, a soft click, a whisper, movement behind him. He froze, chest tightening, hand sliding to his gun at his waist. Marcus. The voice was familiar, coated in smoke and regret. His eyes darted, searching the shadows. Slim stepped out of the darkness, hands raised, smile tight. You got here fast, Marcus said, voice low, cutting through the rain like a knife. Slim nodded, glancing over his shoulder. They're everywhere tonight. Don't trust the corners, the alleys, not even your own reflection. Marcus studied him. Even Slim carried that tension now, that warning in his eyes that says, I'm as trapped as you are. Where's Tuck? Marcus asked. The name tasted like ash on his mouth. Slim hesitated. Dead, 3 nights ago. They didn't leave him to rot. They left him to scream first. The words hit Marcus like a bullet, not metaphorically. He felt it, a sharp, cold punch against the chest. His mind flinched, replaying images he didn't want to see. Tuck on the concrete, blood swirling into the rain, eyes wide with betrayal. He didn't speak, he just nodded, the sound of rain louder than any words. Slim moved closer. They want you to see the pattern, to understand who's left standing when the city ends. You or nobody. And then it happened. A car screeched around the corner, headlights slicing through the darkness, bullets rattling against the metal. The alley erupted into chaos. Sound, fire, smoke, the smell of gunpowder. The wet leather. Marcus dropped to the ground instinctively, gun drawn, eyes scanning for the shooters. The first one appeared, masked, gloved, moving fast. Marcus squeezed the trigger. The report cracked the air, echoed off the brick walls, and the attacker went down. But there was more, there always was. Slim screamed, firing blindly into the shadows. Go, go now. Marcus didn't argue. He ran, heart hammering. Rain pelted his face, bullets digging into the pavement around him. He felt it in his bones. Every shot fired was a reminder that this life had no mercy. Every breath was borrowed, every second stolen from the inevitability waiting for him at the end of every street. By the time he hit the safety of an abandoned warehouse, Marcus's heart was a drum in his ears. Rain ran down his neck, down his arms, mixing with the sweat, the blood, the grime. He leaned against the rusted support beam, gun still at the ready, listening to the silence that followed. And then it started, the whispers. Soft at first, just at the edge of hearing, like a wind through cracked windows. But soon it became voices, Tuck, Slim, unknown men, women he didn't recognize, all calling his name, accusing him, judging him. You left him. You promised. You're next. Marcus pressed his palms to his ears, tried to shake it off, but the sound seemed to come from inside his skull. Each word a hammer, splitting his focus, tearing reality from him. He realized suddenly that the bullets, the betrayal, the money on his head, none of it mattered. The real danger was inside of him, the paranoia, the rage, the fear. They were the true hunters now. And yet, there was clarity in it too. A clarity that that was frightening in simplicity. He was alone, always had been, always would be. Marcus steadied his breath, blood in his eye, sweat in his hair, rain in his lungs. He thought of the mantra he had repeated for years, the one that kept him alive through every beat down, every betrayal, every near death. I'm the diamond in the dirt, and they haven't found me yet. He smiled bitterly. It was a smile that didn't reach his eyes, a smile that tasted like iron. He checked the gun, counted the rounds, each one a promise. Then he moved deeper into the shadows of the warehouse, past crates, broken pallets, past graffiti that whispered old threats in colors that had long time had forgotten. He knew the city outside was waiting for him to step out, to make a mistake, to bleed, and he knew the city was inside his mind. The whispers, the ghosts, the paranoia would never let him rest. Marcus Hale was alive for now, but alive was another word for hunted, and hunted meant that soon, very soon, someone was going to pay, or he would. The night had swallowed the city whole, rain hammering down in sheets now, relentless and drumming, masking the sounds of footsteps, engines, distant sirens. Marcus moved like cat like Marcus moved with cat-like precision, shadows clinging to his leather jacket, like they were part of him. Every alley, every corner, every flickering light seemed to breathe danger, and he knew he could trust none of it, not even the darkness. He hadn't slept since the ambush in the alley. He didn't want to. Sleep meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant death. The whispers had grown louder, more urgent, more intimate. Tuck's voice had shifted, accusing, almost hateful. Slim's warnings repeated themselves endlessly, warped into commands and threats that made him flinch. You left him. You always leave them. You're next. He rubbed his eyes. The blood wasn't real. At least, he hoped it wasn't. But it streaked down his face as if the city itself had marked him. He was in a new neighborhood now, streets unfamiliar, buildings decaying, and every shadow felt like it was watching. Marcus wasn't just paranoid anymore. He was certain. And then he saw him. A single figure emerged from the rain-slicked street ahead. Black hoodie, gloved hands, a limp in the step that Marcus recognized immediately. Slim. Relief flooded him for a second, pure, raw, until he noticed the glint of metal at Slim's side. Not a gun, something bigger. A knife. Wicked and reflective. Slim's voice was soft, almost casual. You've been running, Marcus. Can't run forever. Marcus' chest tightened. Slim? What? Before he could finish, a second figure stepped out of the shadows. Tuck, or what used to be Tuck, hollow-eyed, pale, twitching with intensity. Marcus hadn't seen in life. He wore a grin that didn't belong to the man he once knew. You thought you left me bleeding in the alley, the figure hissed, but I waited, watched, I learned. The rain beat down harder, turning the streets into a river of reflections. Marcus's gun was with it, with was in his hand with an instant in an ist, in an instant, but the knife flashed faster than his perception could track. The first strike tore through the air, missing Marcus by inches. He rolled, pulled the trigger, and heard a hollow echo that wasn't human. He realized too late that these were no longer people, these were hallucinations, memories twisted into predators, spectators conjured by his fear and rage. Yet the pain was real. He felt he could feel the strike cut through his shoulder, through his jacket, but burning hot and sharp. His mind screamed and he fired again. Each shot tore through the wet night, each echo bouncing off the brick walls, each shadow morphing into something new, something alive. Marcus collapsed to his knees, chest heaving, soaked through with rain, sweat and blood mixing in with the drizzle. He didn't know what was real. He didn't care. All he knew was survival. By the time he reached the rooftop overlooking the empty square, Marcus's breathing was ragged. Each inhale was a battle, each exhale a prayer to nothing. The city below was quiet now, eerily so. The the rain, only sound was the rain hitting the concrete, and his own heartbeat hammering like a war drum. He leaned against the railing, gun dripping, hand shaking. Every reflection in the puddles around him seemed to show him, not as he was, but as the predator he was becoming. He felt the cold seed of rage growing, feeding off the betrayal, the attacks, the whispers. He whispered, barely audible, "Many men, many men wish death upon me." And he meant it. Not the abstract, distant wish of some anonymous enemy. No, he meant the ones who had betrayed him, abandoned him, left him bleeding in the dark. He meant the ones who whispered behind his back. He meant Slim, Tuck, and the faceless ghosts inside the city itself. His mind began to bend, shapes morphed into shadows, moving with intent, faces twisted, mouths open and closed, and silent accusations. Every step, every heartbeat, every sound of water dripping from the rooftop became a signal. Marcus knew what he had to do. He climbed down the fire escape, dripping, silent, merging with the shadows. Each step carried him closer to inevitability. His gun clicked against his hip as he checked chamber again, fingers itching, mind calculating. The city had become a labyrinth of predators. There was no safety, no sanctuary. Not even the rain could wash the blood from the streets. His blood, or theirs, and it didn't matter which was which was which anymore. The whispers pressed in, the voices of the dead and the living mixing into one singular terrifying chorus. You can't hide, you can't run, you're next. Marcus Hale smiled, a dark, bitter, feral grin that split his face. Then let them come, he whispered. Let them all come. And with that, he disappeared into the night. The rain had stopped, not gone, but paused, as if the city itself was holding its breath, waiting. Marcus Hale moved through the slick streets like a phantom, leather jacket clinging to his body, gun in hand, eyes scanning every shadow, every reflection, every flicker of movement. He had become something else, not quite alive, not quite dead. A predator, yes, but a fractured one. The whispers were more constant now in his head, outside his head, bleeding together until he could not tell where he ended and where the city began. Many men, many men wish death upon me. He whispered it like a prayer, like a curse. The words tasted like ash, but they fueled him, sharpening him. He reached an abandoned warehouse again, the one he had used as a temporary refuge. Broken windows gaped like missing teeth, dripping water from the ceiling, rusted metal groaning under weight of years. Marcus crouched behind a stack of crates, scanning. They were there. Slim, Tuck, and another figure he didn't recognize at first. Tall, shadowed, movements precise but deliberate. You shouldn't have come back, Slim hissed. Rain ran down his face, eyes glancing. You can't survive this, Marcus. Marcus smiled, a low, feral grin. I've survived worse. Worse, Slim laughed, bitter. You think this is survival? This is the end of you. Tuck stepped forward, face twisted into grotesque mockery of his old self. I waited for this. I've waited for you. I've been waiting for you. Marcus's pulse hammered, each beat like a each each beat a drum calling death. He steadied the gun, aiming between the three of them, and whispered underneath his breath, I'm the diamond in the dirt and they haven't found me yet, and he meant it. The first shot cracked the air, echoing off the walls, then another, then chaos. Reality and madness blur. Time stretched, rain dripped from the holes in the ceiling, bouncing off crates, pulling on the floor. A mirror reflected a mirror reflecting blood. Marcus moved like a shadow, ducking, firing, reloading, slipping between reality and hallucination. Slim fell first, gunshots to the chest. Marcus didn't wait to confirm. He moved on, heart hammering. Tuck lunged next. Or maybe he didn't. Marcus's vision blurred, the shadows bending into impossible shapes. He felt the knife scrape across his shoulder, smelled the copper tang of his own blood, and fired blindly. When it ended, silence, heavy, suffocating silence, broken only by the drip, drip, drip of water on the concrete. Marcus leaned against the wall, chest heaving. The world was still spinning, still alive, still accusing. He didn't know if Slim or Tuck were real, if the deaths were real, if the money in his head had actually been a trap or just a shadow of his mind. But he was alive. He walked out into the empty street, rain glistening on the asphalt, the city quiet. The whispers were softer now, as if improving or mocking. He couldn't tell. He lifted the gun, fingers trembling. God don't talk, he muttered to himself, but he watches. And he believed it, believed that every betrayal, every bullet, every shadow had led him here to survival, to power, to something. He didn't know what, he didn't care. He was the diamond in the dirt and they hadn't found him yet, or maybe they never would. But in the distance, headlights flickered, cutting through the night. Another shadow approached. Marcus tightened his grip, and for the first time in months he felt the thrill, the pure, raw certainty of life in his veins, and he whispered once more, bitter, unbroken, unstoppable, many men wished death upon me. The city exhaled. Marcus disappeared into it. The next morning, the warehouse was empty. Blood dried in cracked puddles. Crates leaned at impossible angles, and the city continued, indifferent, infinite, eternal. Somewhere, a man walked with a limp, scarred and soaked. Someplace else, whispers echoed. Names were spoken in the wind, promises broken, vengeance lingering. Marcus Hale had survived, yes, but the city never forgets, and neither did the men who wished death upon him. Well, that concludes today's video. I appreciate you for tuning in, and I really hope you liked the video. Again, I'm not the kind of person to harass you for likes, comments, or shares, anything like that. But if you like what I do, please let me know. Again, thank you. Y'all have a wonderful day.